Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. Those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. C.S. Lewis, British writer, literary scholar, and Anglican lay theologian. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. What do we got today, folks? Man, I still got Bill over there. I didn't even remove him. He's like, still there, but we're not doing a Bill review, but he's so far away. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to let him sit there. Just going to let him sit there and percolate like he's just chilling. I mean, we're kind of talking about a bill today, but we're not going to dive into the nuts and bolts of the bill itself. Instead, I just want to talk about some of the ways that government is yet again trying to micromanage our lives. And in ways where it's like, for real? Like, I don't, let's just, let's get to that first one here. Let's just dive right in. Well, you know what? Let me back up. Excuse me. Let me back up a little bit. So, yesterday I'd mentioned that I was supposed to have on a guest tonight. That's not going to happen. We're just delayed. It's okay. We're just working out a schedule that fits both of us. So we're delaying it till next week. What that means is I had thought about getting on the show this morning, doing something for like maybe 10, 20 minutes, and then uh, jumping into a premium screen, premium uh, stream, not scream, stream. Getting tongue tied this morning, and I promise I am not inebriated. It's only 7:40 in the morning. I'm totally sober. Maybe not fully awake yet. That caffeine still needs to kick. But anyway, so I'm not going to do a premium stream right now. I'm not going to have a podcast episode later tonight. So we're delaying that for about a week. I will do that next week and I will have a premium stream. We're looking at probably Wednesday. So Wednesday morning, probably do like 10, 15 minutes, something like that. A nice short stream so that people who regularly tune in or maybe are just learning about the show will have something to watch. Then I'll jump over to a premium stream because I need to for Rumble. And then that evening, the anticipation will be that we have our guest on, and I believe we're going to talk about uh, race related issues. So that should be a good conversation. So look forward to that next Wednesday night. And you're probably wondering, like, DL, how come you're, not telling us who it is? Well, just in case something happens, I don't want them to be embarrassed. So, like, between now and then, if they decide, you know what, I don't like you, DL, you look weird and your voice is just irritating, whatever, you know, if there's any kind of an issue, that will save that person from any kind of embarrassment. We will just absorb it all. So that's why I want to be careful about, just making a big to do about something and, just trying to keep it chill. That's all. So anyway, all right, let's dive into this. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I didn't even have this set up so I can get this. There we are. Nope, that's not what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. Give me a second here. Let me where did it go? Why is it not showing up? Should be right there. So give me a second. We'll get this up on the screen here. It's being uncooperative. There we are. Okay. And bam. There it is. All right, let's zoom in on this a little bit so that you can see this. Just in case you want to read along. Make sure that I'm not poorly reading it or whatever. All right, so we're going to go through this Reason article. So apparently, Republicans, yet again, they want to redefine obscenity. And I swear, there's so much conversation about obesity right now. And so every time I read this, I keep wanting to read it as obesity. They want to redefine obesity. Um, and I could actually see, like, the funny part is, I could kind of see that. I could kind of see where, somebody might want to say, like, let's redefine obesity because America's fat. We're just a fat country. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Okay. So this is an interesting article by Reason. And I understand that we're not supposed to, like, libertarians get mad, and I'm not supposed to um, read Reason for reasons. Okay, this is a corny joke. It's a dad joke, right? We're not supposed to read Reason for reasons. Okay, all right. I'll stop. I'll stop. I promise. I'll stop. That's. You know what? I'll either stop or I'll see myself out. I'll do one of the two. So anyway, a new bill would ban sharing visual content that might arouse or titillate. Senator Mike Lee from Utah, of course, wants to redefine obesity. Yeah, again, this was an accident. Redefine obscenity in a way that could render all sorts of legal sexual content illegal. His proposal would make the definition of obscenity so broad that it could ban even the most mild pornography and possibly even more. Lee and Representative Mary Miller from Illinois, who introduced a companion bill in the House, have made no secret of the fact that the Interstate Obscenity Definition Act, IOTA, is intended to get porn off the internet. Okay, so can we just be ultra clear here? You are not taking porn off the internet. And this is not me with, like, the porn brain trying to defend it. This is just me speaking practically. Do we even know what the internet is? It's a whole bunch of computers connected together. Like, right now, I am connected to Rumble. And you are if you're watching from Rumble, you are connected to Rumble. And Rumble is facilitating the transaction of my stream to your device. Same thing if you're watching on X, or if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook. right? And there are a bunch of computers between me and you that are facilitating this. And that's like the simple version. It gets more complicated from there, and you get more computers involved in the mix from there. That's just the simple way. You are not let me put it this way. I'm 47. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be 47. I'm not 47 yet, 46. And when I was like 15, we had um we had the TI-82 calculator, which you could program. And yeah, you guessed it. If you said, "DL, did somebody program some naughty looking stuff on the calculator?" Yes. Yes, they did. They like it was it was all text based, right? So there's no you don't have like color and graphics and movie. It's not quite like that. But basically somebody did the ASCII version, which is basically all text, right? Just and there was an ASCII version of a naked person, and so you could see it on your calculator. Like, porn back when I in the '90s on my TI-82 calculator, right? And this we had porn there, right? This was back in the day. If you're an old, if you're a proper old, you might recognize this name, Leisure Suit Larry. Remember that? Do you? Like, that was I've never played the video game, but we heard about it, and it was supposed to be some, like, adult-oriented video game at the time. I've never seen it. In fact, maybe after the show, I'll go look it up. It's dangerous looking up things on see, this is what I mean. Like, you can't even look at things or look up things on the internet without, like, getting yourself in trouble. So, for instance, um fun story here real quick. We'll just kind of shift to a little story mode here. I need like some story music, like a harp. And then like for me to be like wavy looking, it's like, I'm kind of like dreaming and going. Anyway, I'm gonna work on that. So here's this fun story. Um where was I going with that story? Oh my gosh, I'm getting so sidetracked today because I've got like 50 million thoughts in my mind. So I may have to come back to this story because I just forgot the friggin' story that I was going to tell you. It was not the one about the TI-82 calculator. Let's see, where was I going? I'm kind of rambling today, and I apologize. So I'm trying to think because this sometimes when I'm doing the show, I think of something in the moment, and then I got to try to insert that into with all my show notes. um, Let me look at that article. Let's see. I was talking about crap. What was the ah? I can only fill in with a bunch of words to try to give me a moment for so long before it becomes obvious. Like he's just rambling, and then people are going to don't turn away, don't leave, don't leave. So I'll tell you the story if I can remember it. We'll just get back to this. Um, that sucks. I hate that. I hate when that happens. Anyway, uh, so it's intended to get porn off the internet. Our bill updates the legal definition of obscenity for the internet age, so this content can be taken down and its peddlers prosecuted. Lee said as he introduced the legislation. So they not only want to take the porn away, they want to punish people for providing it. Now, look, I get it. Maybe you're a good going Christian person and you're like, look, nobody needs to look at that. Nobody needs to do a lot of things. And this is the core of the problem. When government starts deciding what you need and don't need to do, what's moral and immoral, right? And we're not talking about crimes, right? There's a distinction there. If if somebody is if somebody has brought another person into pornography against their will, that is a crime and it should be punished. If somebody is trafficking somebody, that is a crime. It should be punished. If somebody has underage uh, guys and girls in their films, their adult films, that is a crime because they cannot consent. They should be punished. But when it comes to consenting adults, well, things change because now consenting adults can do a lot of things that maybe you don't like them doing. There's like if you were to say, DL, just sit down and start writing a list of all the things that adults do that you think they shouldn't do, shouldn't meaning like not do that, right? Not like you shouldn't do that or you'll get punished by the government, but just simply saying like, I don't think it's a good idea. I would be writing for days. I would just be writing and then writing some more, writing. I wouldn't even be able to sleep, right? For days, I could just write list upon list. The list would be endless. And then if I got somebody else to come along and write a list, maybe some of their items on their list will match mine, but they're going to have some things that are not on my list that maybe I would say, whoa, whoa, you don't need to ban that. Like, that's okay. And they might go, no, no, no. And they'll have their reasons why you shouldn't have that. Right. So this is already becoming a problem because it's just trying to say, like, think about what's obscene. Now, my wife and I, we look at things differently. What she considers to be obscene or excessive is not the same as me. In our own household, two married people who generally have some level of alignment. Now think of it in terms of somebody who you do not have alignment with. What does that look like? All right, let's continue on this article. I still wish I could remember that story I was about to tell you. I don't know. Like, normally I just forget it for a moment and then I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. For some reason, it's just not coming back. So maybe the universe doesn't want me to tell whatever story that I had that was totally going to be a good story. Anyway, but his proposed definition of obscenity is so broad that the TV show Game of Thrones could fall under its purview, suggests Richie Joy Levy, president and CEO of the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. The bill makes a mockery of the First Amendment. I haven't even read the bill, but so far I kind of agree, right? Like, I haven't read it, but just based on what it wants to do, which is say, hey, we're going to ban things that we think are obscene and we're going to broaden this definition of obscenity. Like, I already tell you that I don't like it. I don't even have to read the bill. It will just get worse. And the likelihood of me reading the bill and then changing my position is so low, you don't have to think about it. Like, is it zero? I wouldn't go that far. Let's just say that there's always a possibility. Remote, very tiny, smaller than, like, a grain of sand, but it's there. It's not entirely zero. Anyway, it really struck me that there's nothing about that definition that I think would survive constitutional review, says Robert Revere, a chief counsel at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. All right. Obscenity is one of the few categories of exceptions to First Amendment protected speech. While federal law doesn't ban the mere possession of obscene materials unless they involve minors, it does ban possessing or producing obscene material with the intent to sell or distribute it, along with selling, sending, shipping, receiving, importing, or transporting obscene material, or engaging in a business that does. There is no federal law that strictly defines what is considered obscenity. To make a judgment, courts rely on what's become known as the Miller test. Its three prongs were established by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1973 case Miller versus California and clarified further in 1987's Pope versus Illinois. Illinois. I'm all over the place today with my speech, fumbling my words everywhere, can't remember my stuff. You might think I have ADHD today, but I promise you I don't. Uh, Under the Miller test, something obscene must appeal to prurient interest, depict or describe sexual acts in a patently offensive way, and when taken as a whole, lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. If it fails to meet any of these prongs, it's not obscene. Now, this is interesting because if you're not aware of this, you should probably watch like a documentary that has porn stars talking about the industry because I saw a documentary years ago and I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember who was in it. And I don't even know why I was watching it. Probably just because I'll watch anything. But I watched this documentary and these porn stars were talking and they were part of what they like to do is to make fun of Hollywood because apparently if you start out as a porn star and then you decide you want to go to Hollywood, apparently that bar, or at least it was, extremely high. It was very, very difficult for you to transition because it was like Hollywood didn't want to have anything to do with you if you were a porn star, which is interesting because Hollywood puts out some pretty seedy stuff. Okay. So that's kind of weird. Um, but so what a lot of porn stars would do is they would mock and make fun of Hollywood. This is why you get these weird pornography knockoffs of like a Hollywood movie, right? Is part of what they're trying to do is make fun of Hollywood. So I would argue that in that context, according to the Supreme Court, this would, this changing obscenity definition isn't going to stand because they would just be like, look, see all these films that we make where we're making fun, like they take a regular film and they put some sort of pornography spin on it, right? They would just say, this is us using our artistic um, uh, speech to make fun of Hollywood. Now, a lot of people might go, come on, DL. Is that what they're really doing? Perhaps not. Perhaps that's just the argument they're making, but it is the argument that they're making, right? Like, and it's like you can't just go, "No, that's not true. I don't believe you." Like, okay, you have to have some evidence to support that, and maybe at the end of the day, it's really just as simple as some people want other people to see them engaging in intimate acts. Maybe that's it, and they get excited. That gets them turned on. Right? Maybe that's it. There's no speech, there's no scientific value, there's no political value here. Maybe all at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is they just want other people to watch them. Okay. Well, again, consenting adults, right? Like whatever happened, like let's put it this way. Let's put it in a non-sexual context. Let's say that I just want to sit downstairs on my couch and have a cup of coffee and just sit and watch my wife read a book, right? Nothing sexual about it. Just I like I just look at it and I go, this is a beautiful picture. I love reading. I love my wife. This is a serene moment where, I'm enjoying her quiet. I'm just kidding. I get myself in trouble. But you get my point, right? Like I could sit down and I could just watch and I could enjoy that. And I could say, man, this is maybe not entertainment per se, but this is relaxing. Very similar to if I want to sit outside and just look at the lake and watch the ducks go by, birds fly, maybe see some turtles, stuff like that, right? I could just sit and say this is a serene moment. This is my way of enjoying a few moments. Okay. Similar is pornography, right? Pornography is basically the same thing. Even if you don't like it, even if you think people ought not do that, right? It's the same concept. Somebody has decided that they get some level of enjoyment by observing a thing, whether it's just their wife reading a book and looking so peaceful, or watching the turtles swim through the lake, also peaceful, or they're watching two people go at it. Okay. And they're like, wow, that's a really good idea, or whatever it is that they do. Right. At the end of the day, these are consenting adults. And that is part of the problem. Like when I say problem, I mean the problem with banning things is it's consenting adults. They're consenting. Like whatever I consent to with my wife in the bedroom is none of your business. Whatever somebody consents to when they watch something is also none of your business. None of your business whether they watch Fox News, CNN, or Pornhub, right? Do they all have the same equal value? No, porn is clearly no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You get my drift though, right? Like the point here that I'm trying to make is that you don't get to decide what is of value to somebody else. That's not up to you. The only thing that we can do as a society or that we should do is ensure that there is consent. And from there, I mean, I think that really boils like there's not even an and. I was gonna say and, but the truth is it's just consent. If you're an adult, you can consent. If you're a child, you cannot consent. It's pretty simple. And yes, we draw an arbitrary line at 18, right? Like could a 17-year-old effectively consent as well as an 18-year-old? Like if you're 17 and three quarters, is your ability to consent somehow limited for the next 3 months? And then all of a sudden now you have this magical ability to consent? No, we do draw an arbitrary line because you have to draw a line somewhere. We have determined that line to largely, but not entirely, be at 18. So there we say, all right, you're an adult. And I look at it and I say, look, if somebody can sign up for the military and go and get blown to bits in some foreign country, like if they can consent to that, they can consent to watching adult material. Just saying, like just think about this, Republicans. Think about what you're trying to tell us. You're trying to tell us like you'll support people joining the military because you feel that's a good idea, but you're literally saying you can consent to be blowed up, but you can't consent to have a drink because you have to be 21 to get alcohol. You can't consent in some places to buy the firearm of your choice. You can't consent to pornography, right? Like that's what Republicans like for all the culture warrior stuff that they complain about from the left. They're just as bad. They just have their own versions of it. So at the end of the day, my metric, my bar, that the threshold that has to be met is, can this person consent? That's it. Whether or not I think that they like, I get it. When you're 18, when I was 18, I could consent to things that I would never consent to today, right? Because I'm more mature now, right? But that's part of life. That's the reality. But it just is a matter of, can you consent? So even if there's no value there in your mind, there may be value to somebody else. Again, like and look, there are things for which I think do not have the value that people put in place on them. Uh, Marriages that are open, multiple spouses, I don't find those a value add. I think it's a bad idea. I have never met somebody that has lived a like a decade or longer. And I'm not saying there's none. I'm just saying I haven't met them. But I have never met somebody that's had a relationship, a polyamorous relationship for more than a decade. So in my opinion, they generally don't work out. Now, is there somebody out there that's probably had one for a very long time and it's going like super strong and they've got a good family unit? Probably. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all. I'm just saying it happens so infrequently that I look at it and I say it's not really a value add for the most part. But it's not my choice, right? Like I have to draw the line and say, okay, I'm not going to support legislation against this. This is not my choice. All right, let's continue reading this article. Moreover, determine, what, by the way, I still have not remembered that stinking story that I wanted to tell you. I'll remember after the show. Moreover, determining whether something lacks value requires applying a reasonable person standard, and determining if something appeals to prurient interest and is offensive requires asking, quote, whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standards, end quote, would think so. This is supposed to ensure that we're not declaring things criminally obscene just because some vocal minority of people might think they are, or because of standards that are no longer in touch with the times. There's a truth to that. Like things change over time. There was, if you go back and you look in the history of television, there was a time where somebody sitting in a tub with water above their waist, right? So you can't see any of their, anything below the waist, but with their back to the screen. So just showing a back, somebody's back, like a woman's back. That was considered at one time to be obscene and a big deal. Like that. Like now, like you see that in commercials, right? But once upon a time, that was something that people of the day, the general community standard, said that's inappropriate. But now we're in a different place. People are like, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, right? And so society changes, and it tends to become, in some ways, like more open to these things. And again, like if people are fearful of, like, say, a um a slippery slope, I think the libertarian standard resolves that. Can you consent or can you not? Plain and simple, right? And right now We've said that if you're under 18, you can't consent to many things. And I think that's fair. Like, say, like, look, you're 17, you cannot consent to participate in one of these kind of films. When you're 18, you can, even if we would all advise you against it and say, it's not a good path. Don't do it. We might even give you, metaphorically speaking, a red letter A, right? You wouldn't technically be an adulteress, but, we'll give you a scarlet letter, you know, for whatever word we choose, right? That would make sense. The society could do that. But at the same time, we can also recognize and say, while you can do that, you shouldn't do that. Two separate things. It's neither realistic nor constitutionally sound to read the First Amendment as requiring that the people of Maine or Mississippi accept public depiction of conduct found tolerable in Las Vegas or New York City, wrote Chief Justice Warren E. Burger for the majority in Miller, explicitly rejecting the idea that there should be one national standard for obscenity law. I agree. Like here in Jackson, so let me give it to you in a different way. So here in Jacksonville, we have the annual, like many cities, we have an annual Pride event. Our Pride event is pretty tame. Now, I believe if you go to, I think it's Folsom County in California, theirs is not. In fact, I believe that's the one where there is a particular area that is explicitly closed off to people under 18 because of what happens there. And from what I've read, what happens there is not appropriate to talk about on this show. So take the hint. But there's the huge differences, right? Over there, their community has said, we're good with whatever crazy stuff is happening over here. Over in Jacksonville, we're like, let's keep it more on the tame side, right? And so the pride events here, at least in Jacksonville, are family friendly. What I mean by that, like I know some people, some really religious people might object and say, no pride event is family friendly. That's fine. That's your particular standard for which I will support. But when I say they're family friendly, I mean like they don't have the nudity, they don't have like sexual acts and stuff like that. And people, the way that they're dressed is generally like they're very colorful, but they're not skimpy outfits and stuff like that. There's not breast basically hanging out of somebody's shirt and stuff like that. There's no dongs, floating around. Like it's like, let's be honest, it's pretty tame here in Jacksonville. And so Justice Warren Berger is correct. Like it wouldn't make sense to uphold Maine or Mississippi to the standards of New York City or Las Vegas or vice versa, right? Hey, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's kind of got its reputation, right? So if you go there, you might see some wild stuff. If you go to Middle America, you're probably not going to see wild stuff. And so you can make your choice accordingly and say, where do I want to live? Do I want to live somewhere that's wild and crazy, or do I want to live somewhere that's more tame and chill? And you could do that it doesn't have to be a matter of obscenity. You could just simply say, when I was younger, I liked the hustle and bustle of city life. But now that I'm older, I want to live out, in the country, away from people, because y'all drive me crazy. Right. And I want to live in peace with my dog and my cat and some cows or whatever. Right. My family. Like you can make that choice. So the point that I'm making here is that people are different. And the only test here should be consent. Let's continue. Um, Lee's Interstate Obscenity Definition Act would clarify the legal definition of obscenity for all states. Okay, so now he's decided, like, look, you know what? What happens in Vegas has to be the same thing that you expect to happen in Richmond, Indiana, town of like 40,000 people or something like that, right? It would also do away with the definition of obscenity that relies on what Lee's office calls ever changing and elusive public opinion. In other words, he's like, if it's an ever changing and elusive public opinion, that means I can't limit it. I can't stop you from doing it. That's basically his beef. He wants to stop you from doing something that you as a consenting adult should be able to do, whether he likes it or not. And here's the truth of the matter. Uh, Mike Lee, I would guarantee you there are some things that he does in his personal life that I would say you shouldn't do that. Guarantee it. Like he eats something that I think he shouldn't eat. He watches something that I don't think is useful for him to watch. He buys something that I don't think that he should buy. He does something in his personal life that I would object to and say you shouldn't do that. Same thing for you, right? And I do things in my life that he would object to. And so this is the point. He's basically trying to legislate and say his morality is more important than yours. That's what he's saying. Basically, Lee wants to replace the average person's opinion with his own. Correct. Reason's getting it correct here. And his own opinion seems to be that virtually any depiction of human sexuality is obscene. Under Lee's proposal, obscenity would include any picture, graphic, image, file, film, videotape, or other visual depiction that satisfies three conditions. Two of these are similar to the prongs of the Miller test, albeit without including a community standards or average person caveats. Obscenity would have to appeal to the prurient interest in nudity, sex, or excretion, and it would have to lack literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Okay, so let's talk about this lack value. Have you ever been to a museum? I have. And some of the paintings, I'm like, eh. Like, have you ever looked at a painting and go, how come that one's hanging in a museum? I could do that. I have. I've totally went to some of these more contemporary modern art, and I'm looking at them like, "That's art?" What was that one? It's the banana that's taped to a wall with duct tape. That's considered art. I look at that and I'm like, "My son, who is 6, could produce that." Right? Like, for me, I look at it, I was like, "There's no value there. That's not art." However, like, the scope of me being able to say that is at best with me, maybe at best my family. Maybe I could say, all right, family, I am the head of the house. You will not look at bananas taped on a wall. Don't do it. Will be trouble. Right. Like that's as far as in any realistic sense could go. Now I wouldn't do that because like if my wife wants to look at a banana taped to a wall at a museum, whatever. I don't care. If we all went as a family to the museum and my son wanted to stare at it for a few minutes, like I'd give him a few moments and then I'll be like, all right, we got to move on, right? So that's the reality of it. But what I'm saying here is like this, you don't get to decide. Our legislators, and here, the thing is, he's supposed to represent us. So how can he represent us if people are actively engaging in consuming this stuff that he wants to ban? He's not representing people. Representing people should be like, all right, what do the people want? Right. And then furthermore, is this a good use of the power that's been bestowed upon me? I would argue it's not. Like I would say that most of the bills that they concoct are not a value add. Anyway, but rather than requiring that something depict or describe sexual conduct in a quote patently offensive way in order to be considered obscene, Lee thinks basically all depictions of sexual conduct or erotic nudity could count as obscenity. The other prong of his definition of obscenity ropes in anything that quote depicts, describes, or represents an actual or simulated sexual act or sexual contact or lewd exhibition of the genitals in a way meant to arouse, titillate, or gratify the sexual desire of a person. The point is to loosen the definition of obscenity so it's more broad and the government is removed of the obligation to prove patent offensiveness, says Levy. And that way, it would give the government more leeway to target porn producers and distributors with criminal sanctions. So I want to read that to you again because this is the part that really needs to sink in. The point is to loosen the definition of obscenity so it's more broad. And here's the part: government is removed of the obligation to prove patent offensiveness. That should scare you. When the government comes in and intervenes between two adults, they are basically taking the right of two adults to engage how they so choose. For them to do that, the government should have to prove a problem that it needs to solve. Here, they would be removing it And they would say, you no longer have that bar of proving that this is offensive. You get to decide that it's offensive and therefore punish people for it. That is backwards. Mike Lee is basically taking us back. This is not advancing liberty. This is removing it by simply crafting laws, legislation that would remove the government's obligation from proving that something is harmful, that proving that it's a problem that it needs to solve. And instead, the government gets to just say, nah, that's no good. You can't have it. That's a dangerous path to go down. And I would argue everybody, Republican, Democrat, definitely Libertarian, we should all go, whoa, 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 put the brakes on that, buddy. The government, before they ever have an opportunity to take away somebody's right to interfere with the daily activities of law-abiding citizens, they should have to prove that there is a victim, that there is a crime, that there is a problem for them to solve. And if they can't prove it, then people shouldn't be punished for it. And I want you to think about this for a second. On one hand, you could point to some of the more seedy things, right? You could say, well, what about women that are trafficked in pornography? That's a problem that should be addressed. But what about the husband and wife that decide that they're just going to go and watch something interesting? And maybe they decide they want to try it. Maybe that just is something that gets them excited, gets them in the mood, whatever the case. And they're inside their room, in their home, by themselves, two consenting adults choosing to watch other consenting adults do what they do, and then wherever it goes from there, right? Why is the government in their bedroom? That's effectively what it is. The government saying, hey, whoa, whoa, you could do anything you want in your bedroom except for that. You can't do that. And so then if the government can come into the bedroom and say, well, you can't watch that, then perhaps the government can take it to the next step and say, you can't do that, whatever that is, right? This is a problem. And this is where it's on us, those who love liberty, to explain this and say, even though I might argue and say that watching pornography is probably not a good idea, right? It's really up to adults. Adults have to figure this out in the same way that we have to navigate much of the rest of the world. There are plenty of things. You shouldn't eat too many calories. You shouldn't eat too much sugar. You shouldn't drink too much. You probably shouldn't smoke cigarettes. You shouldn't do a lot of things, right? Or if you do, you should do them in moderation, right? But that's up for adults to work out, not the government for adults. This is indeed what Lee and Miller are saying. When they unveiled IOTA, Miller declared that the law would give law enforcement, quote, the tools they need to target and remove obscene material from the internet and to ensure this dangerous material is kept, here it is, out of our homes and off of our screens. It is not your job to keep stuff out of my home. This is why it's called my home, not your home, you socialist, bad word, trying to keep it family friendly. And remember a few episodes ago, I said, I'm going to try to be nicer. I'm trying. I'm really trying. But the moment government wants to come in my home and dictate what I can watch, whether it's porn or it's a rated R movie, too much violence, whatever, it's none of your business. I work hard for my money. I work hard to contribute to society, right? I get up, I go to work, I produce, I obey the law. And if at the end of the day I want to crack a beer, government shouldn't be getting in my way. At the end of the day, if I want to watch a movie that's got excessive violence in it, that's none of government's business. If later that night, my wife and I want to watch something that's a little on the intimate side, for whatever reason, maybe we want some new ideas. Maybe we're just feeling kind of spunky and we want to check out some stuff, whatever the case. That's none of government's business. Stay out of my home, right? And here's the thing. Republicans are supposed to be small government. Yet this is not the first thing that they want to intrude into your home on, right? Like, and we're not going to get into it. I'm just going to kind of briefly mention it. But remember a while back, the Trump administration was saying, hey, you know what? ICE can enter your home without a warrant if we believe that there's, an illegal immigrant there. Like, what is it about Republicans that they keep wanting to come into our homes? Stay out of my home, whether it's coming through the front door or whether it's coming through my monitor. Stay out. So this bill should be roundly rejected. And the fact that he even presented it, in my opinion, I'll say this again, I say this all the time. Voters need to start kicking people out that come up with these jackass bills. We really do. Because when we don't, they come up with more bills. And they're like, what about this? What about this? And all they're doing is that quote from C.S. Lewis. They're exercising tyranny for the good of victims for their own conscience. It's for Mike Lee's conscience. He is trying to satisfy his mind and say, I have saved DL from watching nudie movies. It's for his benefit, not mine, because he's not going to be here to see the work of his benefit. He's not going to be like, all right, let's see how DL is doing. And I'm just kind of putting myself out there, like as a stand-in. Like assume that I watch porn every single day. I watch like 2 or 3 hours of it, which would be, which would definitely be excessive. But let's just assume that. Is he here to look and enjoy the rest of my life and say, wow, good job, DL. You're no longer watching porn. No, he's not. Is he here to help me with my dietary habits? No, he's not. Is he here when I'm having a struggle with anything? No, he's not. He just wants to satisfy his morality. That's it. He is in no way. Let me tell you a story. This is a different story, not the one I was trying to remember earlier. I had a girlfriend one time. That sounds weird saying it like that. Um, I had several, but like one in particular. She had a bunch of friends in quotations. And they would call her up sometimes in the middle of the night. And they would be like, "Hey, I'm drunk. Can you come and get me? I don't want to drive." And she would feel bad. She's like, "Well, I don't want them to drive drunk." So she would like get up and go get them. And I was pointing out to her one day, I said, "I think they're just using you." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Do they call you up to go to lunch?" And she's like, "Well, no." And I was like, "They call you up just to chat?" No. "Do they call you up to go to the mall?" No. "Do they call you up to, say happy birthday?" No. I'm like, "Do they call you ever for any other reason than to come and pick them up when they're drunk?" No. And I said, "They're not your friends. You're not being a bad friend by telling them no because they're not your friends in the first place." The same notion applies here, right? Government is only getting involved in my life to the extent it benefits whoever it is. In this case, Mike Lee. It only to the extent that it benefits the satisfaction of his own conscience does he get involved in my life. But he's not coming down. He's not doing anything he's not getting involved in any other way in my life other than to control it. That's a problem. And we should see it as a problem. And we should say, no, you're not here doing something for my benefit. Because if you were doing something for my benefit, you would be more involved than only limiting me from doing things that you don't like. When that's the extent of your involvement in my life, you're an oppressor. You're not a friend. You're not there for my benefit. You are basically that drunk person that was calling up my old girlfriend only when you needed her. That's who you are. You are a user. You are using me for your benefit. And that's unacceptable because you're supposed to be representing me, or at least the people in Utah. Now, he might be representing some people. There are probably some people who think that's a good idea. And if you are one of those people, then keep pouring out of your house. It's not that hard. So I reject this bill. I think everybody should reject it. And we should send letters to Mike Lee and say, hey, knock it off. And honestly, if his constituents, had any real morality, they would say, knock it off or we'll primary you. We will kick you out of office. All right, let's get some comments. We'll get to we'll get to some comments here. Then we'll go to intermission. We'll come back and I got another story to talk about. So let's see. Let's get some of that cool music going on here. All right. Let's see. Liberty Dad, do we get a hint of who you have on later tonight, or do we have to wait for the thumbnail to come out? So I think you posted that. You might have been late to the show, so I'll repeat that really quickly. So my guest, our times are not aligning, so we're delaying that until next week. So we're aiming for next Wednesday. So there will not be a show tonight. This is the standard regular show. Again, what I was intending to do was to have like a 10 to 15 minute public show, then switch over to premium, and then have a full public show tonight with my guest. I'm not divulging who the guest is, just in case things don't work out. Then I save them the embarrassment of, not being able to make it to the show. So I'm still working with this person. Things are still going good. We're just trying to figure out the right time. And unfortunately, it turned out that tonight was not going to be a good night. So I will let you know, but we're aiming for next Wednesday. Let's see. ADHD and dementia. Shush, you. My VA lady says, I'm drinking my coffee, watching my plants, and bird porn. I mean, kind of. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, if that's what you find serene and enjoyable, then you should be able to do it. And if you find watching shoot 'em up action films enjoyable, then you should be able to watch that, right? And then if you enjoy watching other people engage in intimacy, right, then you should be able to do that too. Like, as long as you're a consenting adult, and as long as the people in there are also consenting adults, or at least consenting, in ways that are appropriate. So like if a child is in a movie, a real movie, not like a porn film, but a real movie, and there's some elements of the movie, then you could make the argument and say, okay, well, they're not, whatever. You get my drift. Like I'm saying, like there are variations of consent. A child can consent to be, in a television show where they're just acting and there's nothing intimate going on. There's no actual violence going on. They can consent to that, right? Or their parents can consent on their behalf. But at the end of the day, people are going to be varied in their interest and what they want. And who's to say that it should be law that other people can't do something that you believe is inappropriate? Let's see. What else do we got here? Let's see here. I got resistance talking to GOP and some LP about the ban on dyes. I said it's a slippery slope when they start banning stuff you like. They didn't want to hear it. Look, the GOP is loving the pill caps. The pharmaceutical caps. Yes. Like whenever team is in power, they just simply have their variation of what is considered acceptable to ban. That's really what it amounts to. This is why people like me are here to say, red team, you're wrong, or blue team, you're wrong, right? And if yellow team ever got any power, I definitely would say you're wrong too at some point, right? So that's what I'm here for, folks. I'm here to keep this balance proper. All right, let's go to intermission. We'll be back. I got another story coming up.
The day I got cited, I was blindsided.
I couldn't believe that I was in America. I left a place where that stuff happens, but not here. Here, this is the land of opportunity.
I didn't do anything wrong.
I just couldn't believe it. I didn't do anything wrong.
You think that you're doing things the right way. You think that you're a law-abiding citizen.
And they said I was under arrest for braiding hair, and they took me to jail.
They seized a little over $100,000 out of my business account here. Took 13 years to get it, and less than 13 seconds, I guess, to take it away.
I remember my attorneys telling me, most people don't win against the government.
Because I know now that we have more than just a chance. I know that we're going to keep our homes.
If we win here at the U.S. Supreme Court, it makes a difference for my girls and for so many other families.
I'm fighting back because I don't want to have a lot of other people have to go through the same thing I'm going through with their property getting seized.
We changed the law so that everybody else can be treated fairly.
I want the opportunity
to operate my legal business,
to practice my craft,
to meet the needs of my community in an innovative way. and someone has to stand up.
Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we're back. Let's dive into this next story. I think I went a little bit long on that last one. That's okay. No worries. Once again, people trying to ban things, and it's absurd. So now we're going to jump on over to Virginia, and we're going to see what Governor Youngkin has to say. So here is this ban.
Big changes could be coming to your child's screen time in Virginia, all thanks to a new law just signed by Governor Glenn Youngkin.
What's limits on how much time kids can spend scrolling on social media? How would it work? Well, Maureen Ume live in Falls Church this morning with the details for us. Morning, Mo.
Good morning. So that is the big question. How will it work? If your child spends hours on TikTok, Instagram, any social media site, that is about to change here in Virginia because Governor Youngkin has signed a law saying that if you're 16 or younger, you'll be limited to one app, 1 hour a day, and that's it. 1 hour a day.
One app, 1 hour per day. Throw him out. Throw him out. I know you're not going to, but you should.
Per app. It seems a little crazy. And some
Not a
people say,
little,
how
a
will
lot.
this be enforced? That's really what it is, the devil in the details. But let's give you the details and particulars and then tell you when this goes into effect. Right now, this is called the Consumer Data Protection Act. It requires...
See, look, Consumer Data Protection. That doesn't even sound like what she just described. Consumer data protection sounds like, oh, you're going to protect my data, right? Information about me. But no, what this is just, it's just an underhanded way to say, all right, we're going to parent your kids for you.
social media platforms to ask for a user's age and then actually verify that age. Then once a child hits their daily 1 hour limit, the app is supposed to block them. But how exactly is that going to happen and how will it be worked out? Experts say the technology to do that is already in place, but enforcing it, that will not be easy. The law does let parents step in and adjust the hour limit by either giving more or less time. People we spoke to this morning have had mixed reactions to this.
Maybe we should try it out.
No.
See how it works. See
No.
if it, I don't know, maybe if the test scores increase or if things change, and if it doesn't work, then go back to the old way.
There are many harmful things in the social media,
Go back to the old way? Look, bro, I'm not sure if you've seen government anytime in the last like 150 years or so, but government's not really good at doing this whole go back to the old way because it turned out it didn't work. It wasn't a good idea. They're not so good at that. In fact, what usually happens is they go, no, this totally can work. We just need to throw more money and resources at it. We're just not trying hard enough. It's like the socialism and communism argument. It's never been really tried. Like government banning things has never really been done right. It's been done half-assed. So we got to just keep working at it. We'll get it right if we just keep trying. No. Like, what's that quote from Milton Friedman, where it's like, there's no, I'll look it up in a minute while.
So we have to protect their brain,
Now, Now, the state's attorney would be in charge of enforcing this, but again, how will it all work? That remains to be seen. This new law is expected to go into effect on January 1st. That's the very latest from now. Of course, we'll keep watching this, bring you updates as we get reaction. Back to you.
All right, Maureen, thanks much. Our Fox 5 Live Instant Poll, we're asking, do you think limiting social media to an hour a day per app for kids under 16 will protect them? 3 out of 4 of you are saying no. You can vote.
Look at that. That is crazy. a quarter of the population, whoever voted in this, said yes, the government should limit social media to 1 hour a day for kids under the age of 16. 25%. Like, yes, I get it. The overwhelming number, 76%, said no. And so they're proper. But a quarter of them said you should. Libertarians, people who love liberty, we got some work to do. That 24%, how's that joke go? It's way too high, something like that. It's way too high. By the way, the quote I was looking for, nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program, right? You can change the word program to policy or legislation, right? Same concept, right? Like government really doesn't do temporary. So the idea that we're going to try something out and see how it turns out, does it raise our test scores? And, here's the other thing. If test scores, like if you want to make a connection between social media use and lower test scores, then we should see really high test scores prior to social media becoming super popular, which we don't. We've always had problems with test scores. So anyway, this is awful piece of legislation that he signed. I got another video here, and we're going to watch. This woman actually she's like trying to argue this. So let's watch this real quick. It's like 58 seconds. We'll talk about it.
But I will challenge you on the fact that maybe the government does need to get involved on behalf of parents. Social media, Meta, Google, they are like ramping up their algorithms. They are ramping up their AI chatbots. They are targeting our children. They are designing chatbots to engage in conversations that would probably be concerning for a lot of parents if they knew their kids were going to have them.
Yes, she is absolutely correct. There is a lot of stuff out there that is not appropriate for children. You know how you figure that? You know how you fix that? You know how you solve that issue? You don't really solve it, but you know how you approach that? By parenting. You act like a parent. Because when I was a kid, I didn't have social media, but there were things that people, back in my day, if I want to be back in my day, the concern was music. This music's got inappropriate language in it. It's talking about inappropriate things. We better put an advisory sticker on there. We need a warning label so that parents know that, hey, this is not appropriate. You can't have this. Parents don't know what's not appropriate about it. They don't know anything that's in there, but they just know that somebody else told them it's not appropriate. And so there will always be, and there always has been, things that parents don't want their children getting into. It is the parent's job to parent. That is their job. Now, I can speak from experience on this with the social media. Number one, my son, he's 6. He does not have any social media. None. We have a tablet. We call it his tablet more colloquially, but it's my tablet. He just happens to be the one that uses it the most. And so I have on there, on his tablet, I have an account for me and an account for him. His account has heavy restrictions on there because it's an Android. And so I use Family Link, which is this software that Google provides that allows me to control the whole thing. So I can actually get on there and I can say, you can have this many hours per day. And then I can go through and I can say, on each one of these apps, here are the apps that you're allowed to access. Here are the apps that you're not allowed to access. Here are the, for these apps that you're allowed to access, here is the amount of time that you're allowed to spend on it. So I think like for YouTube, I've got like 30 minutes set. So once he uses up 30 minutes, that's it. He's done with YouTube, right? He can have a couple games here and there. And like sometimes he'll pull up like the calculator and just play with just so he's playing with something, right? If he's run out, because the amount of time that he has allotted for the whole thing I believe, exceeds the amount of the totality of the allotment for individual apps, right? So he recognizes like, oh, I'm out of time for all these cool apps. What do I do? And so there's a couple like I don't have an allotment for like the calculator, or I think there's like some drawing app where he can like literally draw and stuff. Like I don't have a time frame for that. So there are some things that there's no time frame for other than the total time per day, which he has a limit on. And if I want him to have more, let's say we're taking a road trip and he's exhausted all the things that he can do physically. And now he wants to watch some TV or play on his tablet while we're driving and we still got a couple of hours. Well, I can grant more time. I can say, let me give you an extra half an hour, right? Or if it's the weekend, or if it's spring break or the summer, maybe I'll allow him to have a little bit more. And I've narrowed it down. So between it does not turn on, like the whole thing is locked at 8 a.m. or I'm sorry, until 4 p.m. Did I get that right? I'm trying to remember exactly. I believe it's locked until 4 p.m. So he gets home at like 3:30. And so he still has to wait a little bit, and that gives him time to do, the things that he's supposed to do his chores, take his dog out, that kind of stuff. And then at 4:00, he can get on there. But if for some reason I want him to be on there a little bit early, I can go on my phone and I can pull up the app and I can say, allow him on early. So all this already exists. We don't need government to come in and do it for us. It's already there. You can do it. I've done it. I'm doing it right now. We don't need government. So this lady, I don't know who she is. She's dead wrong. Let's continue listening to her.
It has been demonstrated time and time again that these algorithms and these social media platforms are deliberately addictive because they want children to come in so they stay on there as long as possible and engage as much as possible.
Yes. Kids, when they find something they like, what do? They do it over and over and over. Video games, they'll play the video game a bazillion times. Here, I'll tell you another story. When back in my day, when I was a little kid, we would travel by car to go to grandma's, which was usually like, sometimes it would be like a multi-day trip because like if we lived in Florida and grandma lived in Michigan, we couldn't do it all in one time. So we would take a road trip. And my dad happened to like the Beach Boys. It's an old band. And I was a kid and I liked the Beach Boys. And my poor mother was not so fond of the Beach Boys. Like I think she kind of liked them, but it wasn't a big thing. So my dad and I would listen to the same tape over and over and over until my mom was driven crazy. Why? Because little kids, and I guess even some adults, they like to do things over and over and over a lot. They like doing something. They like doing it a lot. They go play with their friends. They want to play all day long. No breaks. Let me keep playing. They get to watch a little TV. What do they want to do? They want to watch TV all day long. Right? They learn how to ride a bike. They just want to ride their bike over and over and over. They learn how, whatever it is. That's basically a kid's job. A kid's job is to want to do something excessively. And it's a parent's job to rein it in and say, here are the boundaries. And if a parent can't do that, if a parent won't do that, it's not the government's job to go, okay, we're going to step in for you. That's not their job. Okay? That's parents' job. And if a parent doesn't do a good job, too bad. I'm sorry. But it is not the government's job to come in and do what I'm already doing, what many millions of other parents already do. Because you've decided, hey, 1 hour is max. Okay, what happens when I'm on a road trip there, Mr. Politician? I'm driving through Virginia. And let's say that, they've got their network set up so that if my child can't use their tablet for more than an hour. What if I'm driving through and we've already exhausted all the road trip games and coloring and everything else. And now I'm like, all right, now you can have your tablet and you can, for the next couple of hours. Well, I guess not, huh? Because government decided they know best. And this woman's defending them.
So I agree with you. I think all of us as parents need to arm up and develop an agreement like on the local level in your school, in your classroom, so you can all have a strategy that is in lockstep so you can push back.
Yeah.
But that might not be enough. And
No. BS. It is absolutely enough. I'm already doing it. I could limit my son to a half an hour of screen time a day. I could limit him to 0 time, none, if I wanted to, right? I could do that. It's already there. There is no, we need to get together, we need to work. No, it's already there. And you notice she didn't mention anything so far in this clip. And I would be willing to bet the longer clip that she's on the show, I'm willing to bet she does not mention that, yes, you can already do this through Google's app, which is called Family Link. Go look it up. If you're a parent and you're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And I've showed other parents. I'm like, oh, you want to prevent your child from watching too much TV, or you want to limit what they're watching? Here, try this. And they're like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. Yes, right? If the government were to do anything, perhaps they communicate to parents and say, did you know this app exists that will help you control what your child consumes on the internet? And I'm willing to bet you that a lot of parents out there don't know about it, but would like it. And they would be like, wow, thanks, government. Finally, you did something useful. But no, they're trying to parent for us. Maybe they'll come in and they'll decide when my son should brush his teeth or how many gummy bears he should have at a time.
even if Glenn Youngkin's bill is not exactly landing in the right place at the right time, I think it is an incremental step in the right direction. And maybe this is part of the process of getting there.
No, she's wrong. Absolutely wrong. Whoever she is, kick her off the show. She's got bad advice. It's terrible. It's ridiculous. Yes, parents will get it wrong from time to time. Even good parents. Like, I think my mom and dad were pretty good parents. But if you were to say, DL, sit down and tell me a few times when they got it wrong, I could tell you some times where I think now, obviously when I was a kid, I could think of lots of times. But now, as an adult, 46 years old, I can look back and say, yeah, they probably got that one wrong at this point. And yeah, that time they got that wrong. And this time they got it wrong. Yeah, because that's what happens. Parents get it wrong. They don't always do a good job. For whatever reason. Maybe they're lazy, maybe they're trying and they just make a mistake, maybe they've got bad views, whatever. But the government doesn't need to come in and nanny state for us. And what they could do is just give us information, and they can't even seem to pull that off. So if they can at least give us information on how we can do things with the tools that are already available, how much better are they going to actually do it for us? No, they're not. All they're going to do, and this is where it really becomes a problem, all they're going to do is give people this false sense of security and say, we've protected your child, you don't have to do it. And so now they're going to contribute to parents being off their guard when they need to always stay vigilant. Now you might think, okay, well, no, not every parent realizes that, because a lot of people will go, oh, the government banned this, I guess we're good. If it's on TV, it must be okay. But that's not the case. Why? Because going back to similar to the story before the break, people have different morals. They have different views. They have different values, right? I value different things than you do. Here, I'll give you an example. My wife tends to be like, I joke and I say, you're pretty prissy for somebody that came from the third world. And I say it with love. I'm not like being mean to her, because she just will be like, that's dirty, this is dirty, that's dirty, this. And like, that's a good thing. It's good that she's like that. And it's good that I'm like, you're fine. That's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Like, every little thing, she's like, go wash your hands to my son. And sometimes when she's not there, I'm like, you'll be fine. You came in, you were playing in the dirt, and you grab your sandwich and you eat it. It'd be all right. My wife, she'll be like, whoa, 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 go wash your hands. We just have, we look at things a little differently, and that's okay, right? Because we as a family unit work that out together. But more importantly, there's a balance that's found in between those. So my son, as he's growing up, he learns that, hey, I should wash my hands. But there's some times where maybe it's not such a big deal, right? And that's the values that we impart here as a family. And we work and we resolve those and we figure out what the balance is, right? So my wife learns at some point, let it go. And at some points I learn and say, okay, go wash your hands, son, right? Like we figure that out. That is our job to make. Now, other parents, they may have a different perspective on cleanliness. They might say, yeah, this is not such a big deal. Something that my wife would say is a big deal and I might say is a big deal, right? Or something that both of us might say is not a big deal. They might say, whoa, 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 that is a big deal, right? So people vary, even in the same household. And this is what I'm trying to communicate is that people have different values. And the government, at best, they can just communicate that information. And sometimes I'll be right. Sometimes my wife will be right. Right? Like that's how it works. And at best, the government just needs to communicate and say, did you know washing your hands helps prevent disease? That's all. They don't need to come in and say, you got to wash your hands. They can just say, hey, here's some information. Did you know this? And spend their time doing that. I would appreciate it because everybody is ignorant about something. And so to have a central body that's just busy communicating and saying, hey, did you know this? Did you know this app exists and you can protect your child, in the way that you might want? No, I did not. Because there was a time that I didn't know that. There was a time that before I knew about that app, my son would get on his tablet and I would just peer over every so often. I would watch and say, what are you watching? And then if I was busy working on something while he was watching TV, then I would go back later and look at the history and see what he was watching, right? So that I was always aware of that's a parent's job. That's what you should be doing. And so it's not the government's job to parent for you. And yeah, I get it. There's lots of dangers and lots of things in this world that we don't want our children exposed to. But the best thing that government can do is communicate the information so that we're armed, like that woman said, with the tools that already exist. I don't need more tools. I don't need government to come in and do it. Hell, government can't do it anyway. I mean, how many times has government lost obscenity cases anyway? Like, think about it. They've lost them. Larry Flint, the guy, like he was largely the one responsible for a lot of the porn that we have now. He went and he fought the fight for First Amendment rights to be able to produce porn. Government lost. And we're only getting more liberal in a sense with the things that we consume. And sometimes I don't consume them because I'm like, that's not my values. That's not what I want my son to watch. Right? So it's that simple. Stay out of our bedrooms, stay out of our homes, stay off of our laptops, stay out of our phones, stay out of our tablets. Stay out, government. Let's get to some comments here. See what you guys are saying. Maybe you guys are excoriating me and saying, DL, you don't know what you're talking about. Hopefully not. Let's see what we got here. The government needs to ban pet rocks. Maybe I could go for that one. I tease. Let's see. Something moved. I was going to say, your phone gets hot when watching Rumble. Do you use the app or the direct website? So if your phone is getting hot, that's probably your phone issue. You might want to check into that. Let's see. What else we got in here? I think that's it. I don't see anything else I need to address. The purpose is to establish control, says Keith. You have to register, be monitored, and controlled. We don't need no stinking parents. I mean, basically, at the end, look, here's what I said the other day to somebody in a different conversation, but it applies here. Social credit score doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. You want a social credit score? This is how you get a social credit score. Keep giving the government responsibilities over our lives. And at some point, they will go, you know what? We need a score so that people can see how good or bad they are and where they need to improve. I'm telling you, we keep it up, that's what we're going to get. And Republicans, like I know a lot of libertarians are like, oh, Republicans, they're just as bad in their own right. Republicans, Democrats, they all want to ban something. They all want to get in your house and tell you what you can or cannot do on some level. And it's our job as those people who love liberty, whether you're in one of those parties, you're a libertarian or what have you, if you love liberty, it's our job to push back. It's our job to make good, strong arguments so that our fellow man can go, you know what? You're right. Government, get out. That's the goal here. All right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for joining me. I will see you guys tomorrow. So thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.